Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can see the stream running. I see we have a few folks in chat already. How are you doing? Looks like we have Abby and Jackie. Welcome, both of you. Oh, and Loves Tattoos has also popped in. Hello, hello. Give me a moment here. I'm trying to adjust my audio on this side. Bear with me. Given our recent troubles, I'm glad that it's working as well as it is. All right, so hopefully got the things tuned down on this side. How's the video looking, everybody? I had to make some pretty significant changes to settings, and I still am baffled as to what happened, but how do things look there? Is it coming through clearly? How about the sound? And I do realize, and I should inform you folks, there is a slight delay. Part of the problems I had last time we went live, or tried to go live, was YouTube has changed some of the details, some of the settings that are required as far as how they interact with each other. And the best I could do was I had to reduce some of the audio and video quality in order to decrease the amount of lag that was happening, because it was like a minute and a half lag from the time I would see, or you would hear what I was saying, a minute and a half after I said it. Now, there still is a small delay, so please bear that in mind if it seems like I'm ignoring you. It's just I haven't caught up with you yet, so to speak, in terms of that broadcasting delay. But I'm glad it looks like a few people are responding. Thank you for the feedback, Jackie. I'm glad it's looking and sounding good. And just a reminder to anyone who may not be familiar, within the YouTube app, or even if you're viewing it on a browser, you can go to the little settings, the little cog wheel that shows up when you hover your mouse or when you tap on the video. There's that little cog for the settings, and you can adjust the video quality. Now, right now, we should be broadcasting at high definition or 1080p. And that should be the highest it would go. My other videos are actually 4K, but for streaming purposes, we have to tone things down a little bit to keep it working. But just letting you know, if you're getting real grainy video, check your settings first. Make sure that it's the best you can do on your device, and hopefully that will help. And when I bore you to death, you can just turn the mute all the way up and the volume all the way down, and you don't have to put up with me any longer. So there you go. But glad to see we've got more folks tuning in here. That's great. And some interaction. Yeah, feel free to chat amongst yourselves, as they say. And that's part of this opportunity for these live sessions, is that we can communicate not only me to you and you to me, but with each other too. Our Tangles and Toons community. We've got some really amazing people in this channel membership, and just the subscribers and the viewers, and so I'm really grateful for all that. So thank you. Thanks for tuning in today for our live session. Looks like we're continuing to do. YouTube's reporting an excellent quality stream, not referring to the content, mind you, but to the quality of the technical details. So I'm glad to see that that's continuing on. So let's be out of the technology for a moment. How is everyone doing? Has everyone been enjoying their weekend and having some fun time? Maybe even some time to draw and to sketch and do some Zentangle work, if that's your thing. I'll wait for the delay so I can see your feedback here on the screen as well. And by the way, Gail is here with me today. She's right over there. You can't see her, and I can't adjust my camera to see her. She doesn't have her own camera today, but she's here talking along, and if you hear her in the background, yell loudly.
Hello.
Don't know if you can hear that, but she is here, so that's good, and she's ready to chat. Now, Abby, you say you've got some hot weather. Now, I might actually pay money for some of that up here where I'm at. We actually have a pretty nice fall day today. It's probably in the low to mid 40s right now, but the sun is shining, and it's quite nice. Once our stream is over, whenever that may be, I'm in no rush, but once that is, I might actually go try to take a walk today. So we'll see how that goes. You're getting some hellos there, Gail, from the different folks. All right. Now, Loves Tattoos, I got to ask you, do you have tattoos? Do you have some good ones? I like tattoos as well. I love tattoo art, and tattoo. I have a couple of my own, and there it is. You're down in Tennessee, 56. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. I had to turn this AC on. Where are you at there, Jackie, if I may ask? I don't know if you want to reveal to the world or not, but you can just tell me the state. I forget. You may have told me before, but I have forgotten. 5 tattoos. All right. Awesome. Awesome. I got one many years ago that I did the art for. I drew kind of a interesting combination. Well, I thought it was interesting. A combination of a skull, a skeleton, and a phoenix in flames in the background, and it has a bunch of representational meanings to it. But the skeleton is snapping a pair of chains that are attached to his wrists, and he's breaking that, and that has some symbolism as well. But Florida, yes, hot in Florida. Oh, North Carolina is where Jackie's at. Yes, you did tell me that. Now that I see that, I remember that. So for those who may not know, I'm in Michigan. So definitely the land of weird weather. I mean, it can be literally 85 one day, and the next day it'll be 32. I mean, it's bizarre. Not year-round, of course, but we have some pretty wild swings, what we call lake effect issues on our weather. The Lake Michigan and the other Great Lakes around us really have a dramatic impact on our weather and how much snow we get and that sort of thing. So right now the snow's gone. We had that big storm on November 9th, and that was it. And now it melted away, but it will be coming back. I rest assured of that. So yeah, Michigan is awesome. We have some beautiful stuff here, beautiful areas to visit, and great people, and just lots of neat stuff going on. Every state does, quite honestly. Our United States is an amazing place to live and be and visit and travel. So I don't travel much myself for various reasons, but I love watching videos about, what's that, Gail?
When we do travel.
Yeah, when we do travel, it's amazing. So I come originally from the land of the other Antarctica, as we call it, Minnesota. That's where I was born and raised. Spent most of my life there, and then after I got out of the military, I came here to Michigan and have more or less been here ever since, with a few stops in other places. We did live in California for about 3 years, out in the Los Angeles area. Talk about hot. The day we moved into our apartment in Los Angeles, it was, what, 107?
17.
Oh, 117 degrees in the San Fernando Valley when we moved into our apartment many years ago, and they can have that. I do not do well with the blistering heat. So, as they say, it was a dry heat, but it made no difference to me. When it's over 100, you're going to be hot no matter what. So, we got someone from Chicago there, moved there in 79. Nice. Nice. So you're not too far from the Michigan world here. Do you ever come up and visit for various events or anything like that, Abby? Yeah, 117, Jackie. That's right. And we had to unload the big moving truck in that heat, and our apartment was on the second floor. It had an outside access. We didn't have to go inside. There were no elevators or anything, but oh my God, it was brutal. Brutal. Yeah, I bet you get that there in the summers. Yep, Chicago. Last time I was in Chicago was when I was in the military. I had to stop there at the Greyhound bus center. That was quite an experience. That was many, many years ago, but I was coming home on Christmas leave from my military duty and stopped there on the Greyhound bus, and yeah, I have to admit, no offense to the Chicago world and the Chicago folks, but I did not enjoy that time at the Greyhound bus stop. Maybe it's gotten better over the years, but that was brutal. That was brutal. Oh, yeah, thanks, Love's Tattoo, about my tattoo. Maybe someday I'll put a picture up on the screen. I'm not going to scare everybody away by showing you my actual tattoo. It's up on my left shoulder. It's kind of a partial cover, a shoulder cap, I guess they call that. So that's where my bigger one is. That tattoo. All right. Let's see, we got a few more folks with us. Feel free to jump into the chat, folks. Anyone who's watching, of course, you're welcome to just lurk. That's a very common thing with online communities, and I totally get it, and I encourage it. You don't want to talk? You don't want to chat? Perfect. Glad that you joined us, and very happy that you're here viewing us. Hopefully you'll enjoy our discussion and a little later enjoy some of the details that we talk about, and maybe even throw that drawing in there as well. So thank you, everyone who's taken the time out of your Sunday to join us here on the Tangles and Toons channel. And speaking of our channel, I know after Inktober, where we were blasting out the videos every day, of the speed has slowed down a bit. Well, I think I'm getting 2 or 3 videos a week now, which is about a normal pace for many creators, especially art type stuff, because it takes us time to decide what we're going to do and kind of give some thought to the plan. Even if I'm doing something unplanned as far as the composition, I still have to plan the idea and think about that as well. So how is that scheduling working for people? Are you enjoying that pace? Do you wish it was more or less? Am I going too fast, etc.? Give me your thoughts. I'd love your feedback. The channel is for you folks. I'm here doing it, of course, but I do it for you, my viewers and my subscribers and my members, and I'm grateful for that. So let me know your feedback. You set your alarm so you'd be awake. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Jackie, for doing that. That's amazing. You love the cartoons, Zentangle? Good. To be honest, those are my favorites. I mean, I love Zentangle, and as I mentioned in a previous live session, I got certified many years ago because I have such a profound admiration for the method and it's the things that can be done with it. And there are people out there far more skilled at it than I am as far as their just incredible compositions. But I like it as part of my art repertoire. I do so much other kinds of drawing and graphics and designs and things like that Zentangle is an important part of that for me, and I love sharing that. But it encourages me. It makes me feel very fulfilled, I guess, to find out that you love the cartoon elements as well and not just the Zentangle, though that's fine if you're just into Zentangle. But I know that, it's impossible to please everyone all the time, as they say, and that's not my goal, but I do want to make the channel approachable and likable for as many people as possible. And if I stick purely with Zentangle, of course, what's going to happen? Only Zentangle folks will show up here. And I really would like to appeal to a wider audience of folks either who are already artists or who have an interest in other kinds of art. Now, obviously, I've talked to some of you through our chats and through our comments online, and I know that many of you do other kinds of art. You do watercolor paintings and acrylic paintings. I even talked to someone the other day that does sculptures. I love all of that. All kinds of art fascinate and entertain me in just the right ways, but I'm not good at all of it. In fact, most of it I haven't even experimented with. My forte is drawing, sketching, cartooning, and other sorts of semi-realistic art. I like, still life and portraits, and I draw caricatures. I love doing cartoon and comic book style art and things like that, creature art and so forth. Some of it's more cartoony, some of it's more on the realistic or gruesome side. Not that I'm trying to gross anybody out, but it fascinates me to try to create those things. And so I have worked technically in the art field. Many years ago, I had a business, and I did graphic design. The business was called Apex Designs, and I did graphic designs, things like logos and a lot. It was more heavily oriented toward business communication things. I did graphic design for newsletter layouts and things. This is before the age of digital, when you could click a button and it was done for you. But as part of that, I did do a lot of art. But I have been drawing both as a hobby and as a professional, in the sense of doing art for others, but not seeking it out. I've had other employment, but I've been doing art for over 45 years. I've been doing drawings and cartoons and things like that. So it's been doing it many, many years, but I've not worked other than that design field, as I said, professionally. I've done artwork for people upon request, relatives, acquaintances, business associates, and so forth, and have helped do things like that over the years and have been paid for it. And then when I did design work, I, of course, was paid. That was a professional job there, but that did focus less on art and more on graphic design, though the two aren't exclusive, of course. But so now that I'm older and my professional career is winding down largely, I have been able to focus more on the art, and that's why I started this channel. thinking that I would share some of what I've learned over the years and share my love for drawing and the joy of that. Not to quote from Bob Ross, the joy of painting. Well, this is the joy of drawing and sketching and working with mediums like that. So hopefully I can pass that on to others as well. And let's see, what do we say here? You want all the videos we can do. Well, I sincerely appreciate that. If there are going to be times when I'm able to do one every day, when it's a less involved process, maybe we're in the midst of a project of some sort and we can just know what the next day is going to be. And I certainly am not opposed to every day, but I think realistically one every 2-3 days, something like that, is probably going to be a normal pace for better quality stuff. I think it gives me a chance to do better editing and zooming in and making things clear and so forth. So I hope that answered your question, Abby. I don't know if I rambled too much there, but I don't look that old. I like that comment. More of those comments, please. More of those. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm 116 actually, so I look pretty young for my. I'm kidding. Not even close. So, but yeah, I appreciate that. Very kind. Very, very kind. And people always tell me don't skip my day job for comedy, because I'm not going to do that. It's still heavily reliant on dad jokes, I'm afraid. So good. I'm glad to hear it. You did digital art as a business and it ruined the fun of it. Yeah, that is a challenge. I tell you, that's a challenge that content creators face a lot too. And even in my short time, my channel started about a year ago, I think, roughly, maybe not quite a year. I've had prior channels on YouTube, but they were utterly unrelated to this, and they were moderately successful, but I never monetized them. I used them as a corollary to some of my businesses that I had, just, advertising through free content and so on. But I'm certainly no expert when it comes to that. But I will say, even in the year that I've been doing this here on YouTube, there have been days where I'm like, oh, I don't want to draw because I have to. I don't want to draw because, everybody expects my next video and so on and so forth, because that really does. I think you're right, Jackie. It can really take the joy out of our drawing. And that's one reason, to be honest with everyone, that I chose to have a mixture of content on the channel. It's not purely Zentangle or purely cartoons or purely, in my earlier videos, I even released some. If you go back on my channel, they're still there. Some of the earliest things I did were just time-lapse videos of me drawing characters from video games and Warhammer, and I think there were some creature drawings and stuff in there too, just a few of those. And I realized that initially, until people got to know me a little bit, those probably weren't going to be very popular, at least not among the masses, so to speak. So it's not that I've gone away or stopped doing those. I still do them all the time. But I've tried to have a mixture here, because I wanted the ability to have that joy in the drawing. And if I get stuck doing the same exact kind of drawing over and over and over again, it really wears on not only my motivation, but my creativity, and even my execution of those things will start to fall and not be as good. So I can certainly relate to that. And let's see, never wanted to do a video. Well, I appreciate that, Jackie. And I so far, I haven't had that problem, but I can see where that becomes a problem for many, where you'd think, well, it's, I don't know if you all folks remember that old commercial for Dunkin' Donuts, and it would show that guy getting up super early, like 3 a.m. in the morning. He crawls out of bed, and it's time to make the donuts. I didn't want to be like that with drawing. It's time to do the drawing. No, I wanted to enjoy what I was doing, and that's why I throw a little levity in there. I like the cartoons because it adds a lighter nature, just something kind of fun. So I appreciate the feedback there, and I'm glad that you're feeling the same way. So that encourages me even further to continue, which I plan to do anyway. And we'll see how the future opens up. If we get folks interested in different things, it may expand what we do here and how we do it. So, but I just always want people, when they come to the Tangles and Toons channel, I want them to know they're going to have some fun. They're going to learn something about art, and it's, for the most part, going to be art that they can do themselves if they just give it a little time and a little practice. Zentangle, of course, is a super easy, very approachable method, but cartooning, though it can get very complex and complicated, it too is very approachable when you understand those core concepts and those basic details. So I love introducing that to people. And you can get as elaborate or as involved and as complex as you'd like with any kind of drawing. Even people who just do rough sketching, and that's all they do. And I know some phenomenal artists that never do anything that we would call refined. It's all just very sketchy and loose, but it's amazing what they can do. So even when you're doing like that, it takes time, it takes practice, but being exposed to it, having an opportunity to do it, that just is something that doesn't happen if we close ourselves off. I'm only going to do pencil drawings of apricots sitting on a bowl on Thursday afternoon. Well, if you're going to limit yourself like that, guess what? That's as far as your drawing skills will ever go. And if you really want to get good at one kind of drawing, you often need to explore and experiment with other kinds of drawing to help flesh out your skill set. And so I think it's just helpful all the way around. Yes, a lot of time to make the donuts. Indeed, you've seen that then. Yesterday you wanted to do something, you decided to grab your, oh nice, watercolors. I have some watercolors here too that I experiment with from time to time. It's certainly nothing I'm skilled at. I took a class that dealt with watercolors when I was in high school, I think junior high school, and have always appreciated the depth and the breadth of that art form. It's really spectacular what people can do with it. So many different kinds of drawing with water or painting with watercolors. So I keep them around and I dabble with them from time to time, but I am no expert there. You ever see me doing watercolors, definitely take it with a grain of salt because I probably don't know what I'm talking about, but it is fun to experiment with and explore, that's for sure. So I think one of our viewers here, I can't recall who it was. Do you recall, Gail, in her comment recently, she said that her primary thing was watercolors, and I would love someday to see some of her work. I bet it's fantastic. So that's very cool.
I don't remember. It wasn't Jackie, was it?
You just got watercolor pencils. That's something I use quite a bit. I use colored pencils as part of my sketching and drawing process quite often, and I use alcohol markers and things like that. It all goes quite well with drawing and that sort of hand-done art. And I dabble with digital art. I've used an iPad since the very first iPad came out, so I've always been fascinated. Even before that, I had what are called Wacom tablets on my computers. I don't have any now just because I don't need them anymore, but where I could do drawing and sketching directly into the digital form. So I'm pretty familiar with digital art, but I don't use it as the medium best suits. Meaning, the power of digital drawing is that you can do things that you can't do, with a pen or a pencil in super fast and very amazing ways. And of course, you have to have skill if you're going to just freehand draw. But I use digital art more or less like a digital piece of paper and a pen. So I do it the same way I do my drawings. It's just I have the ability to layer and click the undo button and copy things and resize them and things like that you can't do with a drawing. So that's super awesome. And one of the members of my Discord channel, Polyconvex is what he goes by there. I never have learned his actual name, but he draws almost exclusively digital, at least as it comes across in the comments that he makes. And he's quite good at it. He's really spent a lot of time doing that digital work, and it shows. He can do stuff that you just couldn't do with a pen and paper in the way that he's able to do it. So it's a nice feature with that. So haven't nailed the markers yet. Yeah, it's a rabbit hole to be sure. There's a couple different primary brands out there that artists use, and they come in such wide varieties of colors, and there's different methods for using them that can be better or worse depending what you're trying to achieve. So it can be involved. Of course, you have to understand color theory and all that to use them effectively. But if you're simply coloring pictures or adding color to your own drawings, you can do whatever you'd like, and don't be intimidated. Jump right in. You started digital 20 years ago, and mostly because you don't have to spend money. Yeah, that's for sure. You get your base setup. You buy, for example, and to use myself, you buy an iPad and an Apple Pencil, for example, or an Android equivalent. That's it. You've got all your color, all your pencil, all your shading, all your resizing, and you get a printer maybe in case you want to spit out some hard copies, and that's it. You're right, Jackie. Of course, that initial investment is a bit expensive, but for people who have bought art supplies for 20 years, that gets expensive too. So it can, I'm sure, save money. And of course, you're not going through paper. I know just tiles. You know, the Zentangle tiles. These, they're fantastic. I don't badmouth them at all by what I'm about to say. I buy them. I use them because I think they're a fantastic quality of piece of paper, especially if you're doing Zentangle or other small artwork. But let's be honest. Even at reduced prices, when you can find them that way, they're expensive. It's like what, I don't know, 50 cents or something. Didn't we figure out per
Something like that.
per tile? You know, that adds up quick. So it and that's just one silly example. But yeah, save money where you can, right? And a lot of people do their practice sketching on an iPad, and then when they've done the plan or they get the layout or the composition worked out, because you can just endlessly vary it very easily, then they sit down with their pens and paper and do it that way. So that's another great use there too. So let's see here. What do we got going? All right. Well, speaking of art supplies and so forth, one of the things that I wanted to cover in today's session is something that we talked about in our last live session, and I've had a lot of comments and direct questions and so forth about this. Real quick, am I familiar with fractal art? Yes, I know what it is. I don't personally do it, but it's been that was something that actually, when I was back in the computer industry years ago, fractal art kind of became a big thing, and now it's a huge detail with, especially with AI and so on. But so I'm familiar with what it looks like and the gist of how it's produced with mathematical details there. But I do not have any direct contact with it as far as producing it and so on. So is that something you do, Jackie? Is that something you're familiar with that way? Give you that moment there for my feedback to reach you folks. Have you been able to see about how long that delay is? Is it running probably 10, 15 seconds, the delay on the video? I think that's what we had it down once I was doing my repair work and bug squashing here recently. Started doing the fractals. That's cool. Very nice. Very, very nice. But as I was saying, one thing that I wanted to discuss with you and go through is the pencils that I use for my drawing and beyond, not just what I use, but what might be helpful to you. Kind of like one of my old high school science teachers. Oh, no lag at all? That's awesome. Well, that's great to hear. But one of my old high school science teachers used to say, "I'm about to tell you everything you always wanted to know, but were afraid to ask." And I know that's a common phrase. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. Maybe not quite that conclusive and all-encompassing, but I wanted to talk about pencils. Pencils for art. And show you some samples here of what kind of things I use, things that I might recommend. And again, my recommendations are just that. They're my recommendations based on my experience. Your mileage may vary. You may find that the pencil I think is the world's greatest. You might say, I will never touch that crazy thing again. So that's fine. Every artist has a feel, a look, a style, and it's okay if you're still developing your own and you just are curious, well, what do different people use? So I thought that might be a neat thing. So let's take a moment and let's jump into that topic. So I'm going to talk to you about pencils and everything you always wanted to know, but were afraid to ask, right? So let's start with a common thing. How many of you can give me a little ping here on the chat if you'd like, how many of you know what the H and B marks on a pencil are all about? Just curious. So it's very common. You might be masters of it, or you might have no clue at all. So I'm just curious, do you know what that refers to? The H and B and the little numbers that show up on a pencil if you have a wooden pencil. What do you think that represents? Hard and bold, close. Hardness is correct. The H represents the hardness level or the hardness quality of that graphite or the lead as they used to call it. And soft and hard, that's correct. The soft the B stands for blackness, and it does represent the softness of the lead or the graphite. Now, I've always found the B, and of course it probably originated many years ago, but the B is a little misleading because graphite, which is what's used in pencils now, in most pencils, some sort of graphite or a graphite mixture. It's not really black. If you've ever looked very carefully at graphite, even when you're shading it and it's very dark, graphite is gray. It really isn't black. And that's something I'll address here in a moment as far as pencils to use when you're needing that deeper, darker black. But H stands for hardness and B stands for blackness, but it represents the softness. So when you're talking about a scale, and I'm going to show you here, I'm going to switch my camera over to the desktop here so you can see this. And let's try that right here. So this is just one of my sets of pencils, okay? And I use these and go through them. When they get short, I have to buy another set. But this is the Mars Lumograph by Staedtler, which is a very famous art brand, and they produce extremely high quality pencils. Now this is one of their standard and most popular, the Mars Lumograph series. But you can see here that they're in a nice set. These are relatively new here because I've had to get the new ones and already working. You can see which one I use the most, right? My 4B. So what that means, when you see that 4B on there, if you look here, I've got them arranged in the order of hardness to softness. So the higher the number with its correlating letter, so in this case the H's, I'll zoom in here, the higher this number means the harder that lead is, the less amount of softness it has. And so a harder lead, in this case a 4H, makes, when you just use a normal pressure, it just makes a very light tone, as you can see here. Now if I press harder, it will get a little bit darker. I'm pressing quite hard actually, but it's still not much darker, and that's because this graphite is very hard. It's a high level of hardness, and so this kind of pencil is excellent for sketching lightly on a paper when you don't want to leave a whole bunch of dark marks that you want to have to erase later. If you're working on a portrait or a layout for a comic book or whatever it is, you may not want to make every mark you make super dark because it's not going to erase very well. And so that hardness level can be quite helpful in a case like that. I'm going to put these back in the same way. So then as I go down, that lead gets softer and softer and softer. And when you hit HB, this is the most common hardness of pencils, not just art pencils, but others. Now here I'm going to do this very lightly. In fact, you can do it if I do it right next to it here. You can see that it is darker. And if I push harder on that, it gets darker. But this is an HB, which would be right at the center of the hardness scale. And this is what we call a number 2 pencil in most cases. If you went to school as a youngster and they were giving you number 2 pencils, or that's what your mom and dad got for you, basically that was an HB. So, oh, and I see Jackie said that already. Yep, you're exactly correct, Jackie. Exactly correct, Jackie. I couldn't say that very well. So, yeah, a lot of people don't use the real hard levels unless you're really trying to distinguish. You know, something I talk about a lot in our drawing sessions is tone, the concept of tonal quality and tonal variance. To be able to create those tones, you can either use a single pencil and vary your pressure, or you can use a variety of pencils. Now, it depends on the art and the artist, but a single or 1 or 2 pencils with a variety of pressures will usually get a wide enough range of tones for most kinds of art. But when you're doing like ultra realistic photographic art, that is not going to be achievable just with 1 pencil and varying your tones. And I'm looking here at my screen. I want to make sure it looked like it was giving us some grief, but it is still correct there, it looks like. So as long as you folks are seeing what's on my desk or on my desktop here. So, but having these different tones gives the artist a wide range of subtlety in the shading and in the tonal quality, especially for photographic things or things with lots of facets or sides to it, so to speak. It can really help create that. So that number 2 pencil is common. Now let me pause there and say, if you've ever seen or used the Zentangle mini pencil, and you can see it's mini, this is how it comes. This is a full a full pencil right there, made in the U.S. by General Pencil Company, and that's what I wanted to show you. But that pencil, this Zentangle pencil, is an HB pencil. That's what they are. Now, every pencil company's version of HB, or of any of the other numbers, will not be identical. You might get a Staedtler HB, a General Pencils HB, a Faber-Castell HB, and they're going to be similar in that same range, but every company executes those details in slightly different ways depending on their graphite quality, their method of production, and if they're doing any additives to the graphite and so on. But this Zentangle pencil, if you get those, there's a whole reason why they sell them in a very small size. We won't get into all that today, but and it's a legit reason for folks who do that. But if you were using the Zentangle pencil, it's an HB pencil. And there's tons of other qualities here. But then, to come back to this, the higher we go in that B, so now we hit the soft end versus the hard side, and we're moving this way, and the higher that number gets, the softer that lead is, and the darker it will be as a result. Now, why is it that softness changes the darkness? It's because more of the graphite is more easily left behind on the paper. And the softer it is, the easier it gets into all the grains of the paper. If you have a very grainy textured paper, or if it's very smooth. This paper I'm using here is somewhat smooth. It's a harder, like a cardstock. But you can see that. Now that's a 3B. Now I like using the 4B because when I'm drawing on artistic quality paper or higher quality professional paper, I can vary the subtleties of that single. I can get pretty light lines like this. I can get a little bit darker. And I can get really dark. All with that one pencil. And the 4B is probably my favorite lead softness. And I use it most commonly. And it allows me to do lots of different things. And the other thing to be aware of is the softer your lead is. So the higher you go into 4B and 6B and so on, that pencil will need to be sharpened more often because the softer leads wear down much more quickly. And they're, so then you're constantly sharpening your pencil. And it is a factor. You can't avoid it. And when you're doing certain kinds of sketching, you really, really do want a very sharp pencil. But so you've got 6B is nice. I'll show you that just side by side. I don't know how well this will come off. If I do this darker here, you can see that is definitely darker. This was the darkest I could get the 4B. This is about the darkest I can get the 6B. And I'm going to pick that up a little bit so you can see that that's getting closer to a black. Whereas these all look kind of gray. Now if you said to yourself, well, I don't know, that looks pretty black to me. Well, let me show you. And here's where you move into specialized pencils. So I'm going to set my Mars Lumograph aside here. I've got another set by Staedtler called the Mars Lumograph Black. And as you can see here, in this particular small set, these come in, they just start at the HB. Whoops, I'm sorry, you're getting a glare there. They start at the HB and they go up to 8B. So you would think, wow, that's going to be similar, to these. Well, let me show you what a 6B. So I've got a 6B in the blacks, and this was the 6B in the non-black. Now just watch this. Now you can see that is much blacker. It's not so much any darker, right? But it's more black than it is gray. And notice another thing. As I angle it here so you can see it, notice how these, all of these, which are graphite, you see how shiny they are? And they reflect the light? But this one does not, or it does it to a much lesser degree. You see that? And that's what these kinds of special pencils are all about. One of the big complaint that artists have when it comes to graphite is that it is so shiny and light reflective. And when you do a drawing and a whole page or a whole big poster or whatever it is you're doing is covered in graphite in different tone qualities, and the light hits it and you can't see half of it because it's so shiny. Now here I'll show you, this is the 8B. And I don't know if the details here will come across on the, oops, I got a little smear there, but you can see that that's even darker yet. That's the 8B right next to the 6B, and it's even less reflective. And these are fantastic if you're looking for an actual black version of a graphite pencil. Now, I will say they don't have quite as smooth a feel. I'll come back here for a minute. Those black pencils are designed very specifically for this. They reduce or attempt to eliminate the glare that graphite is notorious for, but they also provide a truer black. And they do that by mixing carbon, which is, if you think of a fire and you got a burned log and all the little ashes are just blacker than black, that's carbon, basically. And they mix carbon with the graphite. It's a special process they do to create that, and that's what they put into those pencils, and it makes it blacker than a standalone graphite would be. That's fantastic when you're looking for deep shadows and deep shading details and tonal quality. It's fantastic, and it has the benefit of eliminating the glare. The problem that I have, though, is that it's not really a problem. The concern that some artists have is that those pencils, because of the carbon, don't feel as smooth when you're drawing. They can feel a little bit gritty, a little bit like they're not just gliding across the page. They kind of want to fight you a little bit. Now, not to the point where you're having difficulty, of course, but it can affect, especially if you're drawing a large image and doing lots of shading and so on, it can become a little more tiresome. It's not quite as fun or pleasurable. But yeah, these, if you are looking for a fantastic set of really dark pencils for your shading in Zentangle or any other kind of art, I really, really do recommend this Mars Lumograph Black series. I've tried dozens of pencils that claim they're dark and claim they're don't glare and claim that they do this or that. Those are the only ones I've ever found that live up to their promise. Now, I did also try the Faber-Castell, what they call the Pit Graphite Matte. Now, this is their version of the anti-glare graphite, and it goes all the way up to a 12B. Now, I'll just show you here. This was the 8B on the Mars Lumograph, and this is the 12B, which should be 4 degrees darker, but right away, look what you can see. You should see two things. If my camera's doing it justice, you're seeing that it's not nearly as black, and it has a higher level of glare. It's because this is a different formulation of graphite. Now, it is, I will say, it's a little smoother feeling, if that's a major issue, but it is simply not as satisfying as the Mars Lumograph Black. So these are both roughly the same price for these sets. I think it was, I'm going to guess here, I could be wrong, I think it was right around $12 for these sets. They come in a real nice little tin that makes it great for storing them. But they're just not as nice, but they do come in a nice range, 2B all the way to 12B, whereas this is an HB all the way to 8B. But these are by far my favorite for doing darker, deeper shadows and tones. It's just fantastic. I use them in my Zentangle as well, because when you really want to make one tangle pattern pop and stand out above the others, then there's nothing better than having a better tonal quality, because that is exactly what creates the difference in the shadows and so on. Now, while we're talking pencils, I want to highlight another set here that might be of interest. The Generals pencils, the Generals is the company name. They have been making pencils, as you can see here, for over 100 years. Fantastic quality. This is one that is gaining popularity among Zentangle artists, called the Generals Layout Pencil. Extra black number 555. Now, I have no idea what the 555 means, because it does not correlate to any of the normal darkness or hardness levels. But it is a nice pencil, and it is much... Up here we have the HB. Remember HB here? So you can see here that it is darker, and closer to a black. It's less gray. It does still have that graphite shine, but not maybe as bad as some. And I think this pencil is a really quality pencil. It's a real joy to use too. The softness and smoothness of the graphite in the pencil is very nice. And you can get a box of, what is this, 12? Yeah, 12 of these pencils. I think it was like $7 or $8. So this is another great pencil. It's darker than the HB. I would say it's closer to like a 4B. And the lead is nice and soft, and they're relatively inexpensive. So these are really good quality pencil if you're looking for something that's economical and yet will give you a wide, and you can of course use it lighter and create lighter lines just like you can with any pencil, or intermediate lines, and you can just keep getting darker and darker and darker, and then you go all the way to wherever you want to go. So it's a great pencil, and these are really nice for Zentangle work as well. It kind of gives you that darker shadow than the HB can, but without the hassle, and if you want to do light shadows, you still can do that. It's just a great pencil. So I wanted to mention those as well. And let me see here on the chat. What do we got? Don't touch the H. Yep. 6B. Yeah, 4 and 6B are probably my favorites too, Jackie. Number 2 is equal. Yep, you're exactly right. Used HB for a while. You got to have it. Yeah. Pick that up and get it. That's right. Get a set. Those are good. You'll never be sorry on the Lumograph Black. Those are fantastic. The Pit Graphite and the others are certainly decent pencils. I use a lot of the Faber-Castell pencils, but it's just I wasn't as satisfied with the darkness and the quality there. And you got a set from Pandafly, 24H to 14B. Yeah, that's nice. All the way up there. Charcoal pencils are going to be your darkest or blackest pencils. They'll be super, super black, but they're just different to work with. You use them differently as far as how they blend and smear, and they can be real messy at times and can be a little more challenging to use, especially in a smaller drawing like a Zentangle drawing. I don't know that they would be that helpful. They might smear too much, blend too easily, but that's just my opinion. If you're enjoying using them, I would say go for it. Go for it. So one other thing that I get a lot of questions about related to pencils is these kind of things, mechanical pencils. Now this just happens to be one by a company called NicPro. They have very, I think, very high quality for very reasonable prices, and I'll show you some sets here in a moment. But you can set different sizes. So this is a 0.7 millimeter, so it's a nice tiny size. You can see that. I've got a point, well, that's a 2. Here's my 0.9 right here next to me, a little bit bigger. I don't know, it's hard to see just how much bigger because it's only 0.2 of a millimeter. This is a full 2 millimeter, so that's a larger lead. You can see that. And then I've also got a 0.7 around here somewhere. But mechanical pencils, so what about them? Are they, tons of artists use them. And one of the things I mentioned a moment ago about keeping a point on your pencil and keeping a sharp point when you're drawing is really critical, especially for certain types of precision drawing and so on. But that's a beautiful thing about a mechanical pencil, is that you never have to sharpen it. All you do is click the button and it spits out some more lead. Now this particular pencil has an HB, a dark HB lead in it, so you can see it gets quite nice, and I can do light. Well, I can do all the same stuff that I can with the other. Now that's the 0.9, so that's the wider one. This is a smaller one, so it gives me a little more precision, and if I'm careful, I can make it do lighter, but it also can get pretty dark. And let me see if I can find my other. Yep. Oh, Abby, I wonder what you used. Where you? Yeah, and I'll take all of the items that I've mentioned so far. They are all available on Amazon, but you might want to also check places like, jetpens.com, and I can't think of the other big, Blick, I think it's called Blick Art. They sell tons of, supplies and so on, and you just compare your prices. But Amazon usually has the best pricing that I've seen, and of course, if you're a member, you can get free shipping. Now, this pencil, this is my smallest. This is actually, I have a 0.3 as well. A 0.5, and this has a 4B lead in it. Now, I put a little too much pressure there and snapped my lead. This is a tiny lead, so you do have to be careful with it. But it allows for great precision, and you can see it's quite quite dark. This has a special Japanese lead in it that I bought. It's called AIN. AIN. Well, I'm going to write that up. Boy, I keep breaking my lead. I'm getting too heavy-handed. Oh my goodness, I can't even do it. AIN, and it's by Pentel. And they make different leads for mechanical pencils, and that's what I love to use. Their lead quality is fantastic. And the Japanese graphite is kind of famous because it's so refined and so high quality. It really, really does great things with the lead. It's super soft and silky feeling, and yet you can get the different darknesses and so on really nicely amongst the pens. And so it's great. Now, if you're needing the biggest variety, so mechanical pencil, what's the benefit? You don't have to sharpen it. You can use a bunch of different sizes and lead qualities if you have a couple different pencils, or you can interchange them. You can also do, now this is what they call them, I grabbed the wrong one here, a 2.0. This is not actually a mechanical pencil, it's called a lead holder, but it works just like a mechanical pencil. It's just a big 2mm piece of lead. This happens to be a 4B. This is a 4B lead. And I can draw a light and whatever. This is just, and these are real sturdy so they don't snap and break on you. So if you want that advantage of a mechanical pencil with the beauty of being able to swap different leads in and out of it, the 2mm size is excellent. And you can get these, and you do need, for those leads, if you want to keep a really sharp point, I'll show you, you have to have these little sharpeners like this. And you just put that in there and you grind it like you would, and you can see the stuff just falling, but it gives me a really nice point. Now that's not necessary, but if you want that sharp point like you would on a mechanical pencil, that's how you've got to do that. Let me dump this out here.
Jackie asked if you have links.
Links, great question, Jackie. I don't have them in the description box yet, but once the live is over today, I usually go back and update the thumbnail and add a better description, and I will try to add some of these links in there as well, just so you can know exactly the pieces that I was talking about. But let me just show you. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So I just want to show you that this is a NicPro set. Okay, this came with 5 pencils. This is the .3 one of them, and a ton of this. I got this set just recently because I needed to refresh my pencils. I was running out of things, but it even comes with some erasers, a whole bunch of different, hundreds of replacement leads, and you can see they're in different softnesses and hardnesses. Here's a 4H, 4B, 6B, 2B, etc. And we even have some color leads, and these will only work in your larger 2mm pencil, so they don't work in the 3, 5, 7, and 9. They just don't make it that way. But this set, and these are really high quality. There's better quality out there, but the quality at a certain point doesn't make a difference. It's a, what do they call that? A distinction without a difference. Pentel, for example, they'll sell you a single pen or pencil for $18, $20. This entire set with 5 pencils, all the leads, erasers, and the replacement leads and the sharpeners, that whole set was less than $20. And it's on Amazon, and I will include links for that. And if you like different styles, here's another set that I bought a while back. This one had all black pens, and so they just are a different style of pen, or not, I'm sorry, not pen, mechanical pencil. It works the same way. These have an external eraser, which is kind of nice if you like that. I like the little tripod grip. You see how that's kind of shaped there? It's comfortable in the hand, but the problem with artists, if you are like many or most, if your lead begins to wear on one side, you need to rotate it to keep it from making marks and gouging into your paper and so on. That is difficult to do with this pencil because you can only rotate it 1/3 of the way every time. You can't actually rotate it just a little bit. I know that sounds silly, but for someone who's done a lot of art, if you've done a lot of drawing, you might understand what I'm talking about. I don't mean that to sound like a snob, but it's just that it's hard to describe. And these make it hard to rotate to get rid of that edge on the lead. But I like to use that particular set as a quick fix for color. So here I've got just 3 2mm pencils filled with different leads, and you can see it's a blue lead, green in this case, and red, just common colors that I might use, and it just gives me quick access on the go without having to bring 100 different things with me, and I can even swap out these leads really easily on the go. So the leads, I get a set like this, let's say, and all I do is pull out one lead and slide the next lead in. And that's it. So it just gives you some nice color. Now these aren't high quality, artistic, professional level, color leads here. They're not the little wax core and all that sort of thing because they have to work in the mechanical pencil. But it is something that's available for those who want that flexibility. Now the last pencil I wanted to show you is called the Blackwing. And you may or may not have heard of these. I went most of my life having never heard of them. They were super, super popular pencil years ago, and then the company went out of business and was restarted, I think, in, I think it was 2009, if I'm not mistaken. And I just had lost track of it, had never thought of it. But it's probably one of the most famous pencils in the world, used for different purposes, but a lot of artists love them too, and I'll just tell you why. They don't use the standard softnesses and hardnesses. They don't use 4B, HB, etc. They have names for theirs, like this one's called the Pearl, and it is their moderate or balanced lead. And it's a really nice lead. I would say it's probably like a 2B, somewhere in there. If you can push harder and get darker. So it's a nice, has a nice variety of darkness. And then they have one called the 602, which is their firm pencil. That just, in their mind, this lead is a little bit firmer, a little bit harder. But as you can see here, it gets just as dark as the other one, almost imperceptible from it. And then they have their matte pencil, which I've used down to a little nub here. This is one of their softest leads. And so it definitely is softest. You'll go dull on this one very quickly, and it gets maybe a tiny bit darker. But these pencils all use one of the finest Japanese graphites that you can buy. It's incredibly smooth and soft and buttery, and it really is a joy to sketch and write. Even if you're just printing a letter or something, they're a real joy to use these pencils. But they are quite expensive. I got a sampler pack because I was really interested in trying them, and they very quickly became one of my favorite sketching pencils. I would probably get the firm, because even the firm pencil is softer and more smooth and buttery than any other firm pencil I've used. And their little slogan there, half the pressure, twice the speed, is their little joke about it. But they're just really, amazing pencils, and they let you just do all kinds of fun stuff. But in terms of the quality of them, but that pricing thing is kind of a put off for many people. They're about, depending where you get them and what the quantity is, they're going to be about $2 to $3 a piece. They do have this cool little eraser that pops out, and you can adjust it, pull it out and get, once it wears down, you can get that pull that out further to continue to have it. It is nice to have an eraser there if you quickly need to erase a mark, but certainly not essential when you can get, erasers like this. But it's a great pencil. I mean, if you have the money and want to just try one out, I don't think you'll be dissatisfied. They're incredibly high quality pencils. They're also made with what kind of cedar, I forget, California cedar wood, and so they have a little bit of a nice cedar smell to them when they first come out of the box. They're really cool. But they are expensive, but very popular among certain people, and they're very famous. Famous composers and architects and famous screenwriters and so on have all used the Blackwing pencil, and it's just very, very popular. But they probably won't get a space for me forever just because of their extreme expense. I think to buy a box of 12 of them, it's like $36 plus shipping. So it can get pricey. But if you like them, who knows, it may be worth it.
Yes, is the color.
Are the colors blendable on the mechanical pencils? Is that what you're talking about? On these? So, if you have these colors down and you use a blending pencil, you can see here, or not a pencil, a blending stump. They don't blend at all. I don't know if I have my... Here I've got a colorless blender, and that will soften them a little bit, but that doesn't blend very well. So these with the colored mechanical pencils that comes with the NicPro sets, they are not very good quality as far as, you can't blend them. As you can see, they don't smear or blend with a stump or with a colorless blender. They're great for spot color when you're just kind of playing around. Like I was just yesterday, I just was sitting here doodling. This is nothing I'm trying to show you as far as an art piece. I was just doodling. And I got done with my doodle and I thought, all right, I want some green, some red, and some blue. So I grabbed my color pen, mechanical pencils, and there you go. So I had some Zentangle patterns, a couple little cartoon nonsense in there. And here was my tipple man, a little character made entirely out of tipple, and my frog smoking a cigar. So various strange things. But to answer your question, Jackie, I hope that answers you. They are not blendable. So they're great for that spot color piece here and there if you want the color pencil. And you can do lighter. They do work like a normal pencil would, where you can go light and then you can go dark. So they do allow that, and they work pretty well for that. But these particular colored leads do not blend very well at all from NicPro. Now, there might be some available from other sources that would be color leads, maybe Pentel. I haven't checked to see if they make color ones, because usually when I'm going for colored pencils in a serious way, I'm going to use my higher quality art pencils, but hopefully that helps. But using mechanical pencils are great, because they blend and smear just like any other lead. If I go back to these, you can see some, well, those weren't even the mechanical ones, but if I just hit this, you can see they all are very, very blendable. And this is pretty poor paper for blending that I'm using. This is a hard, smooth surface. I prefer something with a little grain to it, but that's that. So yeah, the pencils, as far as they go, they will blend and smooth quite nicely and erase roughly the same as a standard pencil as well. Yeah, the disposable. So here's the bottom line. Jackie raises a good point that I wanted to chat about, and that is, are specialized pencils necessary? Do I really have to spend money on the Faber-Castell and the Staedtler Mars Lumograph and the Blackwing, $3.50 pencils or whatever? Is that really necessary? No, it's not. You could go down to Walmart and pick up a pack of 100 number 2 pencils or HB pencils for probably $3, and you'd be able to draw like a pro. It's going to take a little more work if you're going for those subtle tones, but as far as do they draw as good? Yes. Obviously, the quality of the art is up to the artist, but the pencil, as far as its use and its function, you don't have to have the nicer ones, especially if money's tight. Make sure you're eating and not buying too many pencils. But is there a difference, though? Is there a quality and performance and enjoyment difference? And I would say, yes, there is. One favorite author of mine who uses the Blackwing pencils, I actually wrote his quote down because it was kind of neat. He said, "I know it seems strange to say it, but I feel more creative the moment I pick one up." And he's talking about the Blackwing pencil in this particular instance. But that sentiment has been expressed by me and to me from other artists for years and years and years, that there are just some tools that they love to use. And I think they love to use them not just because they're efficient or economical or because they work in that sense, because anything will work, right? You could get a crayon and draw some pictures with it. But there's just something about a quality pencil, pen, piece of paper, etc., or paintbrushes or whatever you're into. I mean, you could make a sculpture out of Play-Doh, right? But if you use sculpting clay, that process is not only going to be easier because of the quality, but it's going to be more enjoyable because of the quality. So try to find that balance. Strike the balance between spending a little money and feeling okay about it to get a quality instrument, but you don't have to go bonkers and spend $500 on a pen, because that $15 pen will probably serve you for life and work just as well. But it's just that unanswerable factor for the individual artist. And I have certain things that I love to use, and whenever I can, I grab those items. I make sure they're the ones laying on my desk all the time, because it just gives a greater joy to my practice of art. So hopefully that helps. And yeah, you can ask about paper, Jackie. Go ahead. What's your question? I'm going to actually take a sip of water here while you're typing that out. No, I'm good, thank you. All right. Cardstock, which one is best for what we do? For Zentangle, I assume is what you mean, or Zentangle and cartooning, that kind of stuff. The cardstock, this is, I don't know what the pound is on this. I may have to look that one up for you, Jackie. I don't remember. I like this weight. This is a heavier, of course I'm not on camera there. It's a heavier stock, so it's not bendy and floppy, but it's really a smooth surface. It's great for pens and markers and stuff, because what you'll find is, in general, the more texture a paper has, the more you face potential feathering with pens. Now, the Sakura pens, like we use for our Zentangle, right? Our Sakuras, here, I'll switch back over here. So our Sakura pens, the PNs, the 01s, the 08s, whatever it is that we have, in all the different colors. These are archival quality inks, but more importantly, for what we're talking here, they are pigment inks. And pigment inks, generally speaking, I'm oversimplifying perhaps, but they remain on the surface of the paper. So whether that paper is smooth or rough, they generally won't seep into the fibers of the paper and feather outward. And so when you draw a precise line, it remains a precise line. The difference, however, with smooth and textured paper is going to be more important when it comes to your pencil work and the ability to shade or blend the graphite. So here, let me show an example. I'm going to just grab one of my pencils here. And this is that smooth paper. So I'm going to lay down just a basic layer of graphite. Okay, just a nice little layer there. And I'm going to take my tortillon, and as I blend that, it blends just fine, but it's not really doing anything more with the fibers of the paper, and it's kind of the same blend all along the way. I mean, it's lighter than the original, but it's not, I don't have a lot of control over it. Now, when I take, here's a nice piece of the Zentangle. This is a little bijou tile, but it's the same paper. And so I want to show you this. When I just do, I'm going to even do it lighter here than I did on the other. And just, now you notice too, let me see if I can zoom in and show you. Another thing you'll notice with texture papers, you see all these little, they look like little gaps. That's because of the texture of the paper. So a smooth paper won't do that. Whoops, right there it is. It doesn't do it as much. But when it comes to the blending then, this paper responds, the textured paper responds a bit more and lets me, I can grind it into those fibers, I can smooth it out, and I can be a lot more subtle with it. And it's because it's picking that up into those fibers on that paper. You can actually see the texture of the paper. Now, some artists love that and some artists hate that. But so the smooth versus textured, it does make a big difference in that final product and how things will look. But I will look up a few more details on the paper, the weights and the types that I like to use, just because that's the point of reference for me. It may not be what you're hoping for, and I will put that also in the description box of the video once it goes, once the live is done. Like I said, I'll update that information, and then you'll be able to access that and link to the different sites and the different kinds of paper. So I'll give you some examples there of what I like to use. I like to use Canson, Canson. They have real high quality papers, and there's a few other. And of course for Zentangle, I love the tiles. And I also use these, which I will link to on the video as well. If you've not seen this, these are available on Amazon. These are way, way less expensive than the Zentangle tiles, right? They're very same size. They're 3.5 by 3.5, but instead of a rounded corner, they have the little cut corner. And you can see they're a little bit whiter, whereas these are white, but it's almost cream colored compared to the whiteness of these. And these artist tile set, these, are very, very smooth. And there's no writing on the back, so they're the same. But these are a great, lesser expensive alternative for Zentangle because you don't have to cut your own and go to all that hassle. But they're really, really inexpensive compared to Zentangle. So a lot of artists, CZTs and so on, will use them. But the Zentangle the Zentangle paper rather, for me personally, still remains my favorite tangling paper. And I also like to draw other characters and stuff on the Zentangle tiles as well, because I think it's fun paper to work on. I like the, pardon the way I say it, I like the feedback. I like the feedback that the paper gives me with my writing instruments. The pencil scrape and the eraser scrape. It just has a cool feel to it. So you have Abby's got, is that these tile sets, the artist tile sets? Is that what you mean, Abby? Do you like those as well? I'm trying to see if it says what it says. It's a 300 GSM cardstock for those, and that's probably very similar to what my, the scrap that I've been using, the thicker cardstock. It's 300 GSM. I think that's probably about right. Sometimes it'll be by pound, 60 pound, 80 pound, etc. But the GSM is there, so. You do like them as well. Yeah, I find them to be quite a reasonable value, and they're really nice to work on. And they work great with like gel pens, or if I do lots of drawings with the cheap old Bic pens. Someday I'll show you all my pen stuff because that's even more involved because of the stuff I use. But I like drawing just with Bic pens. They allow you to do what you can do with a pencil, lighter lines, darker lines, whereas a gel pen is kind of the same darkness all the time. And you have to rely on skills like cross-hatching and things like that to make your dark, tonal differences. But so hopefully I didn't bore you out of your minds there with everything you always wanted to know about pencils, but were afraid to ask. Maybe now you kind of wish you hadn't asked since I beat it like a proverbial dead horse. But hopefully it was helpful kind of going through some of those details. And let me know if you have additional questions. About the pencils or other items, or about anything really, and I'll do my best to answer. Jackie asks, when you use the tiles, how do I store them? Do you mean once I've done artwork on them? If that's your question, which I assume it is, for years I just kept things in a box. It was like a shoebox type of thing. It was the easiest way to do it, and I could get tons of them in there. But it was not fun. You couldn't really display them. You couldn't let somebody sort through them. So now I've got these big 3 or 4 inch wide 3-ring binders, and I was able to buy, again, on Amazon. Amazon is kind of the universe of everything, I guess, for many folks. But I found these clear inserts, basically, where you can slide. It's made perfectly for 3.5 inch tiles. Fits perfectly in there, and you can display 6 to 9, I think, depending. Well, it wouldn't be 9, not in that thing, would it? It would be too big. Or is it?
It's 9.
It is 9. You can get 9 tiles on each side. So if you put, one on each side facing each way, that means you can get 18 tiles in a single page in your insert. And then I just fill as many pages as will fill that binder, and then I go to the next binder. So that's how I store mine. So hopefully, is it that? No, is it 6? It looks like 6 to me. It is 6. I'm sorry, we were right the first time. It's 6 on one side, so the 2 sides would be 12. 12 tiles per. Here, hand me that, Gail. Yeah, I'll show you. This is just one of my books. I think I can fit it underneath my camera here if I flip it open. I'll just randomly open here, but it's hard to see because my camera won't back up far enough for you to see the whole thing. But it's just these sorts of things. It just lets us, and I can put my little 3Z tiles in there as well if I want. And then I have a separate, in this particular one, I've got a separate one where I can put my bijou tiles. So here I can get 4 times 5, so I can get 20 or 40 per sheet in these. This is how I store them. They just kind of look like that, and that's how I believe they're still available. If not, I'll find that out when I look to get the links for you. But that's what I use. Here, let's see. Get my camera back here. I just bumped my camera. Threw it out of whack there. There we go. All right. So hopefully that answers that. Add that here. Absolutely. You're welcome, Abby. I'm glad that was helpful about the pencils. I know sometimes I have a tendency to overindulge in the details. So if I did that, I apologize. But thank you for continuing to be interested in that and to finding some value in it. I hope that's fantastic. You're very welcome. Very welcome. What'd you say, Gail?
Let's draw.
Yeah, Gail says, let's draw. Let's do it. She's going to whack me in the back of the head here any minute. So how are we doing on time? How long have we been live here? We've been live for, I have no idea, over an hour already. Wow. You folks that are still with us, are you interested in doing some drawing? You can pop up, and if so, if you say, yes, we'd like to draw, I'll let you folks decide. Do you want to draw a tangle on a tile, or would you like to draw a cartoon today? I'll let you choose. The paper's too big. Yeah, if you're doing a larger, not sure I follow you there. Don't worry about the tablet slowing you down, Jackie. Mini binder holds 8.5 by 5. Great for larger pieces, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Yep, I got you. Yep. All right, we got a couple votes for Tangles, so there we go. That's so far. That's the only votes I've seen. So that's perfect. And let's see here. Let's do a simple tangle for us today then. Well, simple but fun. All right, let's grab a tile and a pen and pencil. Let's start with a pencil today too, because we'll have to sketch in something here. I'm going to switch back now to my desktop. Hopefully you can see that. Actually, while we're getting ready here and waiting for a couple other folks, I know we're going to do a tangle. Appreciate the insight or the voicing of the preference there. That's very, very helpful. But I'm hoping we're continuing to enjoy the kind of mixed up goodies here on the channel. And I wanted to ask if there's any questions about the channel itself. I've had a few comments that show up on videos where people, or maybe they're sending me messages directly with emails and so on. But any questions about the channel and what we're trying to accomplish or what you'd like to see, I am always open to input. If you say, man, I really wish you would focus on X, Y, and Z, or show us how to do this technique, or I'd really like to see a particular thing that I would love to hear your feedback on is what tangles would you like to see in a future video? Now, maybe it's your old favorite and you want to see if I can come up with anything new, which Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Who knows? I might be stuck in a rut too. But, or maybe it's a tangle you haven't heard of or that you haven't seen drawn. You'd like to see it drawn. Let me know. Give me some feedback. Shoot me a message. My email, my CZT email is listed there on the channel homepage, or you can put it in a comment and send it to me that way. And that I'll get it. I always read all the comments I get, so let me know. Do I color any tangle? Yeah, sometimes I do. I don't have like a set of rules like I always color this one or I never color that one. But yes, sometimes I do. One of my favorite things is to do red and black together. That's an age-old color combination that works beautifully. But adding just spot color to a tile that's been drawn with various tangles, sometimes I'll color it in, or sometimes I'll use the red or colored pen to draw the tangle to make it stand out from the other black and white tangles. So, and then sometimes I'll do a whole drawing, and I think I'm just going to color that in like a coloring book, and literally just have the fun of putting some color inside those tangles, and so I'll do that as well. So yeah, I've done that. I think I've done some like that on the channel. I know with 160 some odd videos on there already. I don't remember all of them, but I'm pretty sure I have a few that feature some color, and it's just a preference. There's no right or wrong. The original Zentangle method is focused purely on black and white, and then as the years have gone by, they've evolved to incorporate colors in backgrounds, colors in the fills of the tangles, colors in combinations of pens. Sakura makes an entire set of different colors, reds and yellows and orange and purple and blue and green, and I've got a whole set, probably, 20 or so, or different colors of Sakura pens in different sizes, and so it's the same high quality as their black pens, and you can add color to anything you'd like. So they're great pens. So the Penguin, you like that one? That was fun. Yeah, I had fun with that as well. Tangles inside of it, kind of a Zentangle inspired art sort of thing. So cool. So when I do the tune, slow down a tad. I can respect that, and I try to show you each simple line that goes into it, but I get it. Sometimes it's new, and I'm kind of whipping along, just making a sketch. And I guess we do that the same with Zentangle too, but we just get more familiar with the tangle patterns, and so we're used to doing them, and so the speed probably isn't too bad. The only suggestion at the moment, if I get a little out of hand and do it too quickly, obviously you can rewind the video, pause it, kind of study what I did there and see the details, and that might be helpful. But as long as you're trying those lines or trying those curves or following the general placement, I know that you'll get it because it's the same as a Zentangle, and we all can do those with just minimal practice. So colored pencils are great, Abby. I agree when you're doing colors. Now, a lot of my drawings, let me comment real quick on this recent, my most recent video that came out, I think it was Friday. I had the cartoon tangle. It was a tune with the Zentangle around it. But the process to get there I started sketching. I said, here's a little monkey. Maybe he could be holding some Zentangle flowers. Well, then, because he was a monkey, I said, well, maybe he's going to be hanging off the frame and grabbing some vines or something. But then I thought, that's probably a little too advanced. Then I said, let's change the character. Maybe he's some kind of a crazy monster. Zentangles all around him. Then I said, well, I want something a little goofier, a little funnier looking. So I said, how about kind of that looking creature? I kind of settled on that, so then I started playing with how it might look and ended with that. And of course, then it ended with the tangle you saw. So those were the only drawings I did. I didn't do a final version of that tile until I did it on camera for everyone else to follow along. But you can see kind of that planning process that goes into it. So I'm doing tons of sketches. people laugh at my silly Post-it drawings. I laugh at it too. But the reason I do that is it's roughly the size of a tile, so I kind of know the layout, the placement. But also, it's dirt cheap. I can buy hundreds and hundreds of Post-its for the price of just a few pieces of Zentangle or other art papers. So it's just a quick way to do that. I've thought about saving all me? What is that? I thought about saving all my Post-its and auctioning them off someday for fun. Not for money, but just for like a fun drawing kind of thing. But who knows? If you like that idea, let me know. Maybe I'll do something like that someday. Give away some of my crazy sketches. But anyway, so for today, what do we want to do? Let's do, have you ever done a embedded letter in Zentangle? How many of you have done those?
Jackie has.
Embedded letter where you take a letter of the alphabet or a character of some alphabet if you'd like, and then you emblazon it. Never done one? Okay, perfect. Let's do one. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our tile or our paper. So an embedded letter, have you ever seen photographs of, let me come back here to my face while I'm talking to you. So have you ever seen photographs of the ancient manuscripts? And they'll have that initial letter of, they got all this text and it's written in this gorgeous calligraphy, but that initial letter is just full of ornate details, often with color, to go back to what Abby said earlier. There'll just be color in it and just all kinds of spectacular details. Have you seen those pictures? Well, if so, that is what serves as the inspiration for the Zentangle I just lost my word. What is it called? Embedded. My mind just went blank. An embedded letter. And this was something that Zentangle headquarters came up with years ago, but it's based on an ancient technique, but just simplified in a really fun, approachable way with Zentangle. Now, with an embedded letter, you can get as elaborate and as ornate as you'd like. There's no rule or limit, right? There's no rule to our artwork. We do what looks good to us. But I'm going to show you sort of a basic version of it today so that you get the idea, so that you can see how it comes together, and then you can follow with me today so you can see how that process comes together, but then you can elaborate on that and add more and more and more details as you'd like. For your own, in the future, you can do these for birthday cards, on envelopes that you're sending to someone. You can do these ornate things, and it's just a lot of fun. So let's get started. We'll go back here to the desk, and let's start with our tile or our drawing surface, and we're going to add some basic details here to get us started. Let me get my thought process here, and we're going to do, so what we used our pencil for to start with is so that we can get our the rough outline of a letter. So I'm just going to randomly choose the letter P. So what I'm going to do is roughly in the center, and you might want to draw a little line so you can kind of see where the center, I know you can't see this line, I'm literally just dividing this tile into 4 quadrants just so I can kind of see where the center is. I don't know how well you can see that. It's very hard to see, so I apologize. But once we do that, now I'm just going to draw a sketch of the letter P. That's the one I'm going to choose, the letter P. So I'm going to just draw my stem here. And you can draw any letter. Let's make it a capital letter, though. So whichever letter you choose, make it a capital. And you can make it as ornate or as simple as you'd like, but I suggest doing a somewhat simple one so that the ornate or the embellishments are going to come from our Zentangle part of it. So I'm just drawing my letter P here, getting my placement, where I'm going to put that. And I'm going to use kind of a block form of this letter, but it's going to let me do whatever I'd like to it in terms of the embellishments. And I think that's where our fun's going to come in. Okay? So I'm just doing a simple block version of this letter. And you can choose any letter you'd like in any style of letter. You can do like a street graffiti letter, or you can do a fancy ornate calligraphy letter, but I'm just sticking with a basic letter P. All right? Now once you've got that sketched in, now we can just go right to our pen, and we're going to ink this letter and get it all set. All right, so that's what we're going to do here. In this letter, again, like with any piece of art, it doesn't have to look like it was printed on a computer, but try to make it readable, right? Try to make it so that you can see, anyone who's looking at your art can see, oh, that's the letter so-and-so. But try to shape that up. I'm going to rotate my tile a bit here as I draw just to make it a little easier. So we've got our base letter. And I'll give you folks a moment there, because what we're going to do next, I'm going to get a bigger pen, a wider nib. I'm going to use an 08 here. In fact, do I have a 10? Oh, I even have a 12. That's better yet. So I've got a different micron. This is a micron 12. And all this is going to let me do, you can see it's a larger nib. I'm going to now ink this entire letter. Now, if you want to save this part for later, because it might take a while depending on the size and the nibs that you've got, you can always ink this in when you're completely done. But I just want to show you this process here. And this will give everyone a time to kind of catch up if you're drawing your letter. And just go ahead, and once you've drawn that in, and it might be not as thick or as wide as this one that I've drawn, and that's fine. Whatever yours looks like, once you have that outline, you want to ink this in and create a complete dark, bold letter here. In whatever language, if you're watching from Japan or something like that, I've had quite a few viewers from Japan. Use one of your kanji characters. That's completely fine. Those kanjis are kind of like an art piece in and of themselves. I love drawing Japanese kanji. I don't know always what they mean, but I love the look of those letters. Or maybe it's ancient Greek, or maybe you've got some other languages that you've studied that don't use the same alphabet. Arabic is another one that has really amazing looking letters to the language as far as the printed letters. But whatever symbol you choose, maybe it's an old Viking rune. I've done, actually, I love the Viking runes. Are fun to read and have fun with the ancient Norse stuff. And I've done lots of drawings using runes and Viking characters and so on. So it's really fun to do an embedded letter with any kind of shape or symbol that you want to highlight and embellish. But as you get your letters there, that's a good question, Jackie, or a good point. With Zentangle, of course, you can put your tangle patterns anywhere you'd like. But with an embedded letter, the idea is that the letter remains itself, generally speaking. I'm doing a kind of a simplified or most elementary version of it to just show you some of the basic principles of creating an embedded letter. And so for that purpose, I'm sticking with a letter that isn't itself a tangle, but you certainly could do that. There's no rule against that, of course. But we're going to be adding the tangle patterns as an external embellishment to create something similar, at least in idea and concept, something similar to those ancient manuscripts that I mentioned, the ones with the very elaborate and beautiful lettering at the beginning of a paragraph or beginning of a page or a section or something. It was something very common back when books were hand copied, hand duplicated before the printing presses and so on. But anyway, that's that. So once we have that filled in, the next step for an embedded letter in its most basic form is to create some auras. And so what we want to do is create some internal, and in my case, internal here, and external auras to our letter. And you want to do these, obviously, with the idea of where you're going with it, or I'm trying to make a sense of what I'm trying to say. Think about where you want to put some flair, if you will, to this letter. Like, I wouldn't want to necessarily put a ton of it here because it would just get lost in this little space. But I could have some swirls and things going on the outside. So watch what we do. So first, we're going to just create an aura or two that starts to bring this letter to life. And an aura, of course, if you aren't familiar with it, is a line that just runs parallel to another shape or another line that you've already drawn. And it doesn't actually touch it in most cases. There are tethered auras and things like that in Zentangle, but we're just going to create a standard aura. And I'm going to use that basic spacing here. There is no right or wrong to that, but I just want to keep it close so it follows the form of my letter. But I'm going to create a boundary, a border, if you will, all around this letter. because we simply want to embellish the letter. You can imagine if you're doing this on a card or something for someone, or doing a piece of art that features their last name or something like that. That's one of the reasons we want to keep this letter recognizable. Now, once we have our first aura, we're already underway for what we can do. And we're going to do another aura though, because we want to start to create a pattern that we can then embellish. So let's just create a second aura. And there's no limit to how these kinds of letters can be created and what elements you can add or how you add them. Again, we're just showing you one example to get you thinking about this concept of embellishing a letter while retaining the letter's unique appearance. All right. So we've got a couple auras. Now we can start to actually form some patterns. So what I do when I look at this, I can see some swirls coming off up here maybe. So I'm going to add some little trinkets, some little doodads, some little tangle patterns that will help me to create more elaborate auras. So like right here, I'm going to create a nice old flux shape. And I'm going to put one over here. And I think I'm also going to put one right there. And you might think this is weird. I could do this in some other way, and that's okay. Again, very basic to show you a pattern here. Okay? And now I'm going to also add two of them right here just because I want to. And now that we have that, I'm going to create another aura. But this time, I'm going to aura everything that's there, including my new tangle patterns that I've added. They will now become part of that aura repetition. I'm sorry for all the twisting and turning I'm doing on the tile here. Just much easier to maintain that aura like I want to when I can move that tile around. All right, so now we've got our third aura. Whoops, I got to do my inside here. Almost forgot. All right, now we need to add something different, but still more of the same. I'm going to add some little flourishes, like a fescue that comes right off of my outer aura there. I'm going to add a couple of those. And these are just simple examples to make it easier to follow while we're drawing here today together. You could use any tangle pattern, any sort of flourishes, any little details that you want. All right. I've added a couple of those, and I think what I'm going to do is add one more flux shape there. I think one more here. And now guess what? You got it. We're going to do another aura around this whole thing now. And part of the reason these are called embedded letters is because they literally look like they've been embedded inside these other tangle patterns. But the letter itself is not changed or altered, at least in this basic design. There are more elaborate designs where you do all kinds of things, even altering the letter itself. But of course, if you alter the letter so much that it's no longer recognizable as that letter, then can we rightly call it an embellished letter, or is it just a tangle pattern? And that's a philosophical question for another day. All right, so we're getting the details here. I'm going to add one more inner aura here. I didn't add any additional flourishes in here just due to space. All right, so now that we've got a few of these auras, in fact, let's do one more aura around all of this. You can add an additional embellishment if you'd like, or you can just do the aura. In my case, and I'll show you why here in a moment, I'm simply going to add that additional aura because we do additional embellishing that will enhance what we've already done here without actually having to create more busyness to it. And we can add as much or as little to that busyness as our tile or our paper or whatever our goal is with this project. But again, with today, I just want to show you this simple format. I know I've repeated that, but I don't want you to think that it's limited to something like this. This is just how we're expressing it in this introduction to embedded letters. I'm getting a little bit shaky there. My arthritis is kind of driving me nuts today, and it's making my hand shake. So I apologize if it looks a little wobbly. But once we have this basic pattern in place, and we've done some repetition with our auras and a few little flourishes, now we can start to enhance this. So everywhere that I see a corner, like here, for example, by my little flex shape, I'm going to add a rounding to this. And then I'm going to add a rounding to every other line that's in that same area. And this is one way that I'm going to be able to change the overall look of this pattern very, very simply and create some cool diversity and some variance to these lines so they don't just look like a bunch of lines. We're going to start to see little patterns that develop in these angles and in these corners, and it's going to change that overall appearance, especially when we do this all around. It's going to create almost a sense of depth and dimension to these little shapes that go around. So here's another little corner, a little connecting point where the curves are allowing us to highlight something here and to bring out more boldness and contrast in our drawing and to just add little bits of detail like this. So I'm going all around now these auras. Just adding these roundings. Okay? Wherever there's little gaps that just seem like they could accept some of that extra ink, that's where I'm placing it. Little details there. And I'll continue doing that all around. Hopefully you're coming along. Everybody coming along okay? No comments because everyone's drawing, right? We're all focused on our artwork. All right. I always know we're all drawing when it gets quiet. Should have done a smaller letter. Yeah, it's not knowing where we were going with it. I should have been more clear about that. I apologize, Jackie, but hopefully it's still working out okay for you, where you can do some of these kinds of embellishments, and we're going to add some background embellishments yet too, just to show you one more example of how an embedded letter becomes this ornate piece, or at least as ornate as we're going to make it today. And again, we can always do more or less, but we like to fill out these details in a way that changes our perception of this letter, makes it seem fancier than it really is, just by what we do to these surrounding lines and shapes. We give it some form and some dimension, and suddenly, wow, it looks like something totally different, or like its own kind of art. Embedded letters are really fun when you start experimenting with them. Once you've learned the basic concepts, it's really fun to see what can I do without altering that original piece, but really making it stand out. All right, it's coming together. I'm going to do a little bit here on the inside as well. Of course, you can experiment if you're doing auras as the basis for an embedded letter. You can experiment with the width between the auras, the amount of space that you leave, because that can give you more or less opportunities for other kinds of things as well. All right. How's everybody coming? Do we need time to catch up where we're at this point? I don't want to zip ahead if everyone's still working on this part of it. All right. Seeing no objections to continue, what I'm going to do here is I am going to use a gray Sakura marker. You can see here the tip is gray. If you do not have a gray pen, you can use simply your pencil. You can take your pencil and do the same thing that we're about to do here with this particular tile. All right, so I'm going to take this gray pen because I don't want to compete now with this embedded letter, but I want to give it a background and continue making it more ornate. So I am going to draw more flux shapes that will fill this entire tile, but they're going to be lighter color. Your pencil will do exactly the same thing. What's my favorite background tangle? Oh boy, that's a good question, and it's hard to answer because it depends on what I've drawn, but I use Tipple Flux, which is, and Printemps, and oh gosh, what's the other one? Tipple Flux, Printemps, and Muka. Those tend to be ones that find their way into the backgrounds of a lot of my tangles, and I think it's because they're so flexible. They allow us to, fill an area very easily. They're very morphable. They are very shapeable and bendable, if you will, so we can do all kinds of things with them without having to really mess with the tangle itself. And yeah, that's probably in that. And I also like just doing lines or hatching, some people call it, but it's technically not hatching at that point. It's just I like nice parallel or auraed lines to fill backgrounds. I do a lot of that on my drawings, so it's just a neat way to continue something into the background without having to actually draw another tangle. And I think for me that's a big consideration. When I put a background tangle in, me personally anyway, I don't want that background tangle to be having a fight, so to speak, with my primary tangle. I mean, sometimes all tangles are equal, so to speak. But I don't always want that background to become the focal point of my drawing. And so I'll put the tangle pattern in the background. I'll do maybe what I'm doing here, use a lighter color, a shade, or a tone that's different. Or I'll just use something that's not overly busy. I don't want to put, Knightsbridge in the back, although Knightsbridge can be a great background tangle depending on the other tangles. But it's something that because of its boldness and the darkness that it lends, it can really overtake the drawing. So it's something that I kind of avoid now and then. Putting something like that. I like to use a simple filler tangle that can be adjusted accordingly as needed. Now, as you can see here, what I'm doing in between my babblings is I'm just filling these areas with more flux shapes. This is certainly not the only way you could do this. I'm just showing this to you, as I've said 1,000 times now, to give you one example of a simple embellished or embedded letter that retains its uniqueness as a letter, but is just set into an area or into a composition that allows it to take on an ornate sense. So I'm just kind of following the curves of the letter, adding my own printemps there wherever I get the urge to do it. I don't have a pattern I'm following, which may be evident if this looks bizarre, but it's just a matter of filling that in. I'm still leaving some gaps because I am going to ink that with the lighter gray color, which will help create an additional background. So for example, right in here, I would just add this. And again, your pencil will work just as well for all of this. The only difference is that you'll have to be a little more mindful about smearing that as you go. If you fill the background with lots of pencil shapes, that can become a recipe for mess as your hand or fingers smear across it or something. So just be aware of that. But I'm just adding, I don't want a black, dark background, but I want some kind of a background there. And that way I can continue to fill this in without worrying about it overtaking the other tangle and letter that we've set into place here. Just continuing to fill this in wherever the mood strikes. Now we can add bunch down here if we want. You could add just the coloration. You could add other tangles. But for me, I'm doing kind of almost like a monotangled version of this, in the sense that the only other tangle pattern that I've used is the flux. But that is not the only way that it can be done, as I've repeatedly said. So now that I've kind of filled that area, all I'm going to do is ink the areas in between my flux shapes. And I'm inking it with this gray. So it's going to have a solid color to it, but it won't compete directly with the black. And it will, whatever shade that gray or your pencil might be, it's going to fill in. You're going to see that, but it won't overtake it and become a competition with the black dark letter that's meant to be the focal point here. For whatever reason, maybe you're designing a logo, maybe you're just using it for your last name and you're going to put it up in some point in your house, on your doorway or your entryway or something like that. But whatever it may be, you want that letter or that name that it represents to be the focal point, not the design around it. The design around it will be hopefully make it more beautiful, make it more elaborate, make it more embellished, but it doesn't have to compete with it. That's at least the idea of an embedded letter. So if you're using your pencil to create these lighter shaded items, and maybe you're using Printemps, maybe you're using any number of other patterns that you chose, or maybe you're using the same one I did, but whatever it is, you're making it lighter with that pencil. And sometimes the inking process, as I've mentioned, the inking and shading are always the most longer portions of a class or of a drawing. And some people don't like that. They get frustrated with it. It feels like they're not making progress. But I would encourage you, if you're one of those people, to just relax, to take a breath, as they say, and to just realize that that is part of art. Sometimes the tedious feeling details are what is going to give that final, finished, and real art part, if you will, if I can use a non-technical jargon, of what you're doing. It's just a matter of, it takes a while. It goes back to your coloring days, maybe as a child or something, and you sit with your box of crayons and color in a drawing, but it wasn't done till you were done coloring it, right? It's kind of the same idea. And that can take a little bit here, and I realize that. Hopefully your process is going smoothly. That's one thing I really wish YouTube had a way for us, like a Zoom call or something, where we could see each other's art. And I'm still investigating the community feature of YouTube, where supposedly people could comment back on my own posts that I make, and where they could share their drawings or images of other things. But there have been some reported issues with that, and some people saying that what they can get out of hand, and they don't really give moderation tools for that yet. So that if somebody has a bot and it just started posting 500 pictures a day or something like that, that would ruin the community for all of us. So I've hesitated to do that. That's also why I have the Discord, because it does allow some more moderating impacts. Although lately, I confess, I've had a hard time finding time to get real involved in the Discord, but it is a great place for the rest of the community to communicate with each other, to leave comments and messages for me. I do check it frequently, but I don't always get to engage as much as I'd like there, just because I'm working on videos or something. But anyway, so that's just me thinking out loud here as we ink in our drawings together. Printemps is Jackie's favorite, she says. Barely ever use tipple or orbs because someone else, that's all. Yeah, tipple is definitely an prevalent, overly used tangle. There's no two ways about it. It's everywhere. It's the go-to to fill in any kind of gap. Like I could have started using Printemps here to fill in the gaps between my flux patterns. And I think there's always a balance with something like that, right? So tipple or orbs, they are overused. There's no doubt. They're everywhere in every drawing, and it can get annoying. I agree with that. However, they're overused for a reason. They're super functional, super easy, and very, very flexible in what we can do with them and how they can be used. So I haven't given up on them. I haven't tossed them out the window. And I'm not saying you have either, Jackie, but you raise a valid point that it can seem like they're just overused, and it's frustrating to see a piece of art where everything is always about the tipple and about that crazy little circle that seems to fit everywhere. And I get it, and I wouldn't use it if you're frustrated with it, don't do it. But it is something where I think so many things that become overused or cliches, if you will, they are that way for a reason, because they can be quite practical and quite effective in when used or when not overused. How's that a way to say it? Everybody still with us here? Yeah, you're right, Jackie. Discord does. I do have a couple voice, or at least one voice channel set up there that you can connect, and it's free. There's no costs or anything, not only for the Discord, but for the voice and video chat options. It is there for folks in the community who want to connect, who want to share their art with each other, or maybe you're looking for input or have questions. And I'm certainly not the only person who can answer, but obviously the Tangles and Toons community is something that I'm working with, and that's kind of my origin, if you will. So I'm trying to stay involved there and do things as best I can. But you can certainly get the insights and advice from other artists who have been doing things as long or longer than I have been. So it's always good and fun to bounce ideas off each other and get feedback on our drawings, or even just to get a nice compliment. It's fun to share a drawing and have everybody say, "Wow, that's great. I love it," and that's just encouraging. It gives us that motivating pat on the back that we need sometimes. So that's great too. So I love that the community can carry on without me. I mean, I'm kind of the moderator there, but at the same time, I love that people are adult enough, right, that we manage ourselves well enough that people are communicating even when I can't make it, and they're having good conversations and sharing art and encouraging with each other's strengths and abilities, and I think that's fantastic. So I continue to encourage. Yeah, Jackie, you're one of the more active members there, Jackie. So I super appreciate you and your communication, the things that you bring up and chat about, and I love that. So please keep being you, Jackie. That's awesome. We're probably, or I'm probably boring everyone stiff here. We've got this eternal inking process that is taking a while. My pen feels like it's dry as dust here, so it's making the inking process a little slower than normal even, but we're getting near the end. I'm hoping that your drawings are coming along nicely. And let me just, since we've just been talking about it, and let me be clear too, there is no monetary benefit to me whatsoever for the Discord channel. There's no cost. I'm not going to start charging you for that. It's just, Discord offers things themselves as a company that you can pay for if you want, but they're not required. But that's just there for the purpose of building community and letting people have a way to chat, to send messages. Like Jackie just mentioned, you can do video and voice chats. You can literally get on there. You don't have to have phone lines or anything like that. It just lets you communicate, and it's just a fun thing to do. So I encourage you, if you want to see other art that's not making it into a video, or that people who have watched my videos are sharing their version of that project or that piece, then you can jump on there and you can see that. And it's growing slowly, but it is growing. I think more and more people are starting to find value in that and starting to tune in. But we also have a lot of members there on Discord that have been members from the beginning, but they literally don't say anything or don't share anything, but they're able to come in and look and be encouraged, hopefully, and inspired by not only the stuff that I'm putting in there, but the stuff that everyone is contributing. So it's really a fun a fun way in the modern age to connect. It's an old version of sitting down at the pub, I guess, right? Or a new version of that old thing. Well, there, I have finally finished the inking, and when I do stuff like this with a background, I often will purposely leave it kind of blotchy. I know it just looks like I was being sloppy. More time would have yielded cleaner results, to be sure, but I like that little bit of a textured look, a blotchiness to it. It just adds a little more hand-drawn look to it, and I think that looks cool. But yeah, Abby, that'd be great. If I mean, I'm certainly not a tech guy when it comes to Discord. I can only offer very limited support that way. But if you do encounter problems or have a question about how to do something, just let me know, and I will do my very best to either make a community post about it or maybe even a video that describes how to use it if you have a lot of questions or something. But yeah, give it a shot. It's free. It does ask you a few questions when you first sign up, only because it knows then what areas of the Discord to open up for you. So like if you said, I don't want to talk to anyone and I just want to look, then it would open up less stuff and make it easier for you that way. But those questions are not, deeply personal or anything like that. We don't ask for your name and address and age and shoe size and all that good stuff. So it's just very simple details so you can sign in and participate. And then there's no minimum requirements. You can participate once a day, 10 times a day, 1,000 times a day, or once every 2 months. It doesn't matter. So it's good. Yeah, so far we don't have any trolls, and that's one nice thing about Discord is if I see someone who's being obnoxious or posting inappropriate things, being unkind to others or something like that, all I have to do is click a button and they're gone. So, and it doesn't hurt the rest of us, and we don't have any problems or anything like that. So, but let's take a look here. Is everyone doing well with their own drawing? Did you get some? Does yours look something like this? Did you do something completely different? What ideas did you come up with in this very, very, very basic introduction to an embedded letter with Zentangle? Any questions that came up? Thoughts or ideas that you want to ask about? Now come back here. I'm going to make you scared by seeing me again here. You did a big-ass J. Oh, that's hilarious. Well, J works, right? Even if it's a big-ass one, right? That's too funny. So yeah, I'll have to dig through maybe sometime and share some of my other embedded letters, because they can come out 100% different. I kept this one as basic as I could think of, just to make it approachable in this session here. I know we've already gone for a little over 2 hours, so man, you guys get the marathon award. Yeah, that'll teach you. That's right. Usually people with Zentangle have a problem drawing too small. That's a very common issue. They draw too small. Everything's so itty-bitty, teeny-tiny that it becomes a nightmare to deal with sometimes. But Jackie today had the opposite problem. She drew the giant version. So looks like something you put Printemps on the bottom right. It looks something like mine, but you put Printemps, cool. Yeah, Printemps would have been another really fun background. In fact, with Printemps, you might not have had to do the inking between, because you can overlap that, and there might not be as many spaces to ink between. So that's actually a great idea, Abby. And I like Printemps as a background too. It works really well as a subtle filler to just get rid of some white space. But this, let's see, can I do like this? That way you can see me and the tile there at the same time. Not that you need to see me, but just while I'm talking to you, it's kind of nice that I'll hide myself down there in the corner and you can see me there, at least still know I'm around. You drew too fast, a smaller one. Yep, nope, that's fine. That's either way. Sometimes I leave the mystery, but then that leaves you not knowing where to go with things. So I apologize for that, Jackie. And for anyone else that I messed up with that. But this is just a fun way to say, look, that letter is still the focus, but it's also been embellished and embedded into these Zentangle patterns. Kind of a neat way to do it, I think. Tisk, yes, take me to task. Didn't do too bad, still kind of new. That's okay. And left-handed too, yeah, that does make a difference. It's just, the angling and the way we go about things can vary. I'm so used to being a right-handed guy that I don't even often think of that. So hopefully I didn't lead you astray there, Abby, but that's great. I wish I could see everybody's that's been working on it here. Seeing what we're doing here with our embedded letter. Now, I'm sure you're still finishing up there, but let me ask this. If you were to give me your vote on upcoming videos, would you like to see any particular tangles, or is there a type of layout that you're enjoying? Now, I can try my hand at anything, even if I haven't done it before, but if it's something that I have experience with, I'd be happy to teach that and show you some of those details. Might get a pick on Discord from Jackie. Okay, perfect. Okay, good, Abby. I'm glad that you enjoyed following along there. Sometimes I know we all get in our own little minds, myself included. My mind is very little, so when I get into there, it can lock out other possibilities. So I apologize if I seem that way. But I love sharing the drawings with you, whether it's Zentangle or Viking letters. Now that would be cool, wouldn't it? Do some runes. I'm going to jot that down, Abby. That's a good suggestion. I've actually done some in the past, and I love doing rune drawings. If you're into runes, it's really fun what they call a bind rune, which is a combination of runes. Are you familiar, any of you, with the Bluetooth symbol? If not, look it up on Google sometime. Just type Bluetooth logo, and that logo is actually made from Viking runes, and because there was a Viking leader, a ruler in the old Viking days who went by the name Bluetooth. Obviously not for the same reasons. He did not have electric glowing teeth, but they might not have been the most appropriate pearly whites if he was called Bluetooth. But those bind runes, or that rune, is a symbol that represents that. So I thought it was a clever use in the modern age of an ancient rune. But I love the Viking heritage. That's my own family's history goes that way. I think I've mentioned before, my grandfather was a first-generation immigrant here to America. He came over from Denmark as a young boy. And so we've got some pretty interesting Viking history way back in the bloodlines, way back. I don't claim any direct heritage or anything like that, but it is fascinating to me to study those things. So Celtic tangles are fun too. Yeah, there are some Celtic patterns that they're technically not tangles. I'm just picking straws here, but picking details. But yeah, some of that kind of stuff would be fun, and there are some neat ideas for. It's hard to do a composition with a Celtic tangle because it's usually, or a Celtic pattern, because it's usually just the pattern. But that's really cool. Celtic style, maybe with some runes, because they kind of, though Celtic is a little bit different than Viking, they come from that same general part of the world historically, so that might be fun. I've jotted these ideas down. Now, how about any? What should I say? Do you guys have a preference for any type of composition? I mean, I know some folks, based on the demographics of my own channel and so on, a lot of people seem to really love the floral tangle designs, and I have no problem with those. We can do them. I've done some already in the channel, but kind of like what Jackie was saying about tipple, I get a little burned out on the flower, and it's not because I'm a guy. I can appreciate beauty in flowers as much, if not more than many. But when Zentangle is used only to draw floral arrangements, it kind of wears me out. It burns me out. The art is so much greater than that, and so much more that can be done with it, that I get a little burned out. And frankly, drawing a flower pattern, nothing wrong, but drawing a flower pattern technically isn't a Zentangle in this sense. Zentangle originally was designed as non-representational art. So it wasn't meant to draw pictures of flowers or birds or butterflies or whatever, though we have tons of tangles that look like that. One could argue, I think, that maybe that's more of a simplified form of art or simplified form of representational drawing rather than pattern drawing. But I'm not here to argue about that. Please don't take me that way. But I do get tired of that when I see so many CZTs, they do only floral arrangements or only botanicals. And they are beautiful. Some of these folks out there are spectacular at what they do with that. But for me, I get tired of that. I like to draw. That's why I throw cartoons in there now and then, because I like to have that variety. It's just something totally different. You don't see much of it out there. At least I don't, unless you're aware of things that I'm not. More like a Zia. Yeah, it kind of is that way, Jackie. I think you're right. Nadine says she agrees floral is representational. Yeah, pattern drawing is a very specific type of art. And the method of Zentangle is a specific type of pattern drawing. Originally, again, all things seem to grow and morph and change over time. But when it comes to Zentangle, as I've said before in my videos here, I have no problem with where Zentangle goes and where people take it. But for me, Zentangle, in order to distinguish itself from other forms of art, I like to keep it in that pattern drawing mold for the most part. Now, I'll spice it up with the cartoons, for example, or use those patterns in my ocean drawing or whatever. But the drawing itself is still a pattern. And it's just that we're using the patterns in different ways. When we actually turn it into a representational drawing, or how to draw an item with a few steps, that's just a simplified drawing. That's not a pattern. And so it's me being technical, but that's what you get for a nerd like me hosting the live show, I guess. So and feel free to disagree, of course, but it's just that's kind of my philosophy on that. Steampunk tangles, that's interesting. I don't know if I've seen anything like that. Are those more of a representational things again, Jackie, or is that something that you've seen? You'll have to send me a link or two of some examples if you can on Discord. That way I can see what you're referring to. I mean, I know what steampunk art is, but I don't know if I've seen any steampunk tangles, unless I'm just thinking too literally about that. Huggins, yeah, what a great tangle that is. It's really fun. Fantastic. Well, I appreciate the feedback, everyone. I know our group, any of you who have stuck around with me this long today, I'm so grateful for that. I really, really appreciate it. You guys and gals have been fantastic. I appreciate it so much. It makes these lives fun. In fact, one more question for you. Speaking of lives, I've been really contemplating doing at least one a week. Now, I would probably set the times a little more bearable for everybody, but let me hear from you, either here or comment in the videos or comment on my community post or something, and let me know what would be, if you had a choice, and I can't obviously satisfy everyone, but if you had a choice for the time of day and the day, every Saturday at noon or every Monday at 12, at 6 at night or whatever, let me know your preference for live sessions. And they will be always a combination of things. They're going to always be a combination of chatting and just communication and updates and so on, but also time to draw and sketch together and do have that fun as a community as well. So I want to make it appealing, but I would like to hit the time zone that works best for most people. I realize, again, I won't be able to schedule it for every single person, but maybe I can vary it if I get a lot of feedback. And some people, 50% of the people want a Monday and 50% of the people want a Sunday. Well, we can do something like that. So Jackie says, I have no life. Midday and evening is good, not before noon. Fair enough. That's probably your work schedule and everything. That works well for Gail, too. She likes later in the day stuff. Love all my YouTubes. Thank you, Abby, so much. And I'm glad that you've learned a lot. That really encourages me to feel good about the time we spend together and then the time I spend making those videos for folks. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Weekends work good for Nadine. Work long hours. Yes, I can respect that. And you want to have your you're weekend free, and don't want to burn it all up, but weekends would be good for you. So excellent. Evenings for Abby. So excellent. Not employed, not no unemployed, but sometimes I can't get to sleep. Oh, well, that's fair enough. Gail's not working either due to her disability situation, but mornings are not good for Gail. She is up a bit later than I am, so I'm usually ready to go back to bed when she gets up. No, it's not that bad. That's a joke. That's a joke. But we harmonize well, right, Gail?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So very cool. But no, I appreciate the feedback as always. And if you're chatting with anyone else in the community, Discord or online even, and you get different information, feel free to have them pass it along to me. I want to try to be open to that. It's funny too because we have, I think just yesterday, we finally in the channel, we're up to 1,200 subscribers now, which I'm super grateful for, but we've kind of stagnated. It's kind of slowed down. It's kind of a trickle of new growth, which is fine. It's just that YouTube limits some of what I can do as far as the things that I can provide to you folks as members or subscribers based on that size. Of course, they want the huge channels, and I'm not a huge channel. But it is funny to me that even with the 1,200 or so subscribers, the views that we get on the videos or in our lives like this are only just a fraction of that even. So it's always intriguing to me. I just wonder how all that works and that kind of stuff. So any day except Tuesdays. Okay, fair enough. I will avoid Tuesdays at least in that sense. And Abby's a night owl also, so maybe an evening one would work well and let you have your days, and we jump on, after dinner or something like that some evening, weekend or something. That could be fun. Or maybe we do a shorter one. What would you think of doing how should I say it? What about live sessions that are more casual and less about art? Let's say maybe I'm out walking in the neighborhood and want to share some beautiful scenery with you or something, and I could just do a live from my phone. It would be much shorter, a half hour or something like that. Do those things interest you folks at all? Is that kind of behind the scenes videos, Dave's boring life videos, that kind of stuff? Or is that not of interest? Would you rather I stayed focused completely on the art and that sort of thing? Craft club. Oh, cool. You're in another craft club. That's awesome. Live BS sessions. Jackie likes those. I do too. I find it fun just to chat with folks and be more interactive. And I know sometimes the mobile platform allows more interactivity when you're doing those. So Abby thinks that would be fun too. All right, I'll have to keep that in mind. I haven't thought a lot about that, but years ago, I mentioned, I think at the beginning, I used to have a channel that I used. It was a hobby channel to support what I was doing to try to stay alive in those days. And I would just film philosophy sessions sitting on my porch, and that was something that was enormously popular. I was just shocked at how popular those things would be. And in those days, I would smoke a pipe and just sit and be a philosopher, and it was pretty fascinating. People seemed to really enjoy that. And Nadine says one of her favorite channels is Mike Deacon, and I only watch his vlogs about his life, view less of his art. Interesting. I'm not familiar with Mike, but I'll have to take a look at that. But that's good to know, Nadine. Thank you for sharing that you enjoy just sort of the chats. And I think that's a neat thing about social media in general, is that it allows people to interact and connect in ways that maybe we couldn't have generations ago, at least certainly not when I was a kid. I don't love everything about social media. I think it can be abused and can become a problem for people, especially young people, but it is neat to have those other options to communicate and connect with people with similar interests or who enjoy sharing with us. Thank you, Nadine. I'm glad that you enjoy my art. I appreciate that very, very much. I love sharing it with folks, but it's especially rewarding when people enjoy it and express that. So thank you. Thank you for that. Jackie says, it doesn't always have to be art. I love to get... Yeah, exactly, Jackie. That's kind of what I was thinking. I didn't know if there was interest in that. And, of course, we can adjust on the fly as we go, too. If I do some videos like that and nobody's watching them, that'll be a pretty clear indicator that folks aren't interested in that. So I'll keep an eye on that, too. But sometimes the YouTube algorithm is very hard to decipher. It'll share my videos with people who I have no idea why it's sharing them there. Not that I mind, but they'll share it with people who play Monopoly or something, and it has nothing to do with anything, and so then they're not watching them, and I get terrible views and terrible statistics, and they're wondering why they're seeing my videos. So it's odd and interesting. But yeah, your before internet friends don't care about art. Yep, I hear that. I have some of those in my family, in my circle as well. Well, cool. Well, I tell you what, I've kept you folks for 2.5 hours, which might be a new record for our live sessions. And let me go back here. Hopefully you all at least had a good time drawing that embedded letter. Gail, did you finish yours?
Almost.
Here, let me just show them what you got done. I'll at least show you. I've just turned off the picture here, but here's what Gail's been doing. So she's kind of following along, very similar to what I did. You even did the same letter, Gail.
Yeah.
You copied me.
I know.
That's all right, but you just were following along and seeing what you could express. You've got some more inking to do here, but that's fantastic. Nice job.
Thanks.
Nice job. And I didn't mention it, but you can add shading to all of this if you wanted to. There's no right or wrong about that, and sometimes if you're doing more elaborate layouts with other Tangle patterns, the shading may be the critical part that brings it to life. In my case, I liked the tones and the details just as it was, so I left it right there. But you certainly could add shading to the letter and to the flux pieces or something like that, but just thought I'd mention that. But back to simply say I want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch. And this video is also being recorded and will be up on the channel so you can review it or watch it again or listen to me babble. If I didn't bore you enough the first time, guaranteed you'll be bored the second time. So watch out for that. But no, watch the videos as much or as often or as little as you like, and hope that you always have a good time when you're here with the Tangles and Toons channel. So I'm grateful for everyone's time today. I thank you so much for joining me. And for now, I think I'm going to sign off. But thanks again, and I look forward to seeing everyone real soon back here in the Tangles and Toons channel. Until then, take care. Bye-bye now.
It says on here.